friend indeed. I got a woman way over down now. Oh, good to me.
What was that, Josh? What were you saying?
Say that early in the morning.
She gives me money.
Oh, she gives me money. I see. Okay.
Not a very good recording. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. Just a little bit hard to hear. I wanted the listeners to know. And on shortwave, I cannot tell you how nice that sounds.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sorry,
welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. We've got Bob Chapman joining us today, and the newsletter is theinternationalforecaster.com. You can go to the website, check it out, and see how to get a free copy, a complimentary copy. Let me tell you also, tomorrow we're going to be talking to Billy Joe Malden for 2 hours. It's going to be called Government 101, and it's going to be a course to help educate citizens on what has been done to them, the massive fraud, and without their consent or knowledge, most importantly, what must be done now by people to get their lives back, their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. 2 hours with Billy Joe Malden. He is brilliant, and you're not going to want to miss that tomorrow. Now, in the third hour, we're going to be talking to the gentleman who is in charge of and heads up the Maine militia. We're going to find out what is a militia and what kind of attention they're getting by the feds right now. So I think you're going to find that most interesting. Mac Page will be joining us in this next hour. We've got Sherry in Kansas. Sherry, go ahead, please, with your question.
Okay, I guess my question is, what if a lot of people die as a result of taking the flu vaccine, and there'll be a lot of people that die with no money, but there'll be some people that die that did have money, and a bunch of money will go into probate.
Well, that's true.
Which I don't think they have money to pay, do they?
What, the insurance companies?
The insurance companies, the banks. You know, it's not really there.
I don't know. You know, they do have an endless supply of money from the Federal Reserve as long as it exists, and the Treasury. But mostly the Federal Reserve, because the banks are within the Federal Reserve system. And the Federal Reserve is private, and it's owned by 12 privately owned banks. And the major shareholders are the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, et cetera. And they're the ones who really run our monetary policy. And this is why Ron Paul's bill is so important, 1207, with 276 or 77 sponsors, that's bottled up in committee by Barney Frank and Nancy Pelosi. Because we audit, we investigate, and then we do away with the Fed. And they know that's what we're after. They're not dumb. And they are scared because this is the nexus to their system. But to answer your question, the big banks will always have money because the Fed will give it to them as long as the Fed exists. So we can do away with the Fed, we cut the turkey's head off, haven't we? So that's the secret right there of getting back our monetary policy and putting it back in the Treasury where the Constitution said it should be and must be. And then that will be followed by a total diminution of power in the banking system privately, because they'll have to be subservient in form to the Treasury, and it'll send a real shock through Wall Street and the rest of the world as well. And it might bring down a number of other private banks, such as the Bank of England as well. So this has vast ramifications, and your question is part of that. And another thing that I've cited before, 7 major insurance companies receive TARP funds. And we only receive TARP funds if you're seriously financially in trouble. And so that means that a lot of insurance companies are in trouble. So if somebody gets a flu shot and dies and have insurance, and they have enough of them, well, the insurance company will say, force majeure, we can't pay, and then the recipients won't receive the money that they've been looking for in their policies.
We're going to be right back after this 1 minute, 10-second break. Thank you very much, Sherry, for the phone call. I mean, we're out of money, and we keep paying out money. How does it happen? Stay tuned to the Power Hour, 1 minute, 10 seconds with Bob Chapman. Anyway, we're talking to Bob Chapman today about the financial situation this country is experiencing. And I want to just go back over the issue of borrowing money, because we're getting it from China, or as much as we could have gotten from China. I think they pretty well said no more money. Haven't they now? Aren't they not buying any more of our treasuries, Bob?
Well, they bought some, but they're certainly not as aggressive as they were in the past, and they're finding different ways to invest the money. And they are buying other currencies, and that's part of the pressure on the dollar. And on top of that, we have the Chinese buying all of the domestic gold production, and then some out on the markets of the world. And so that's how China has been reacting to this. But, they knew this was coming. That was the give up, the 50% or more loss in the reserves that they have in foreign exchange, in exchange for allowing, them to get their foot into the markets of countries all over the world. And the only way, this is not a good thing. It's a good thing that China exports. It's okay. But when you have slave labor, nobody can compete with them, or very few can. And so that destroys the industry in the United States, and sooner or later we go bust. And that's the road that we're heading on. And that's why we desperately need tariffs on goods and services, because there's no other way to combat inexpensively produced goods in other countries.
Well, I'm very concerned right now that people are not going to catch on fast enough to what Obama is doing. I mean, we've got this absolute disaster in Washington where he's handing away all the money. Nobody even understands. It seems like they don't understand what he's doing. Where are the mental mentor? I mean, where are the financial mentors of this country?
Well, they're all absent from duty, AWOL, if you may, and it's deliberate. They're afraid to speak out. They really are. And, if they've worked for government in the past, the government takes great relish in making their lives as miserable as possible. And I'm a perfect example of that. And very few people have the constitution and the competitive spirit like I have to say to these people, give it your best shot.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to counterpunch.
It's time to whistleblow. It is time for the whistleblowers to come to their feet and tell what they know now and expose the people for what they have done, including the whole issue of the birth certificate. I mean, everything needs to be exposed now. What would you recommend for people to do right now other than, I'd still say everybody needs to stock up, but what would you recommend?
What you do, and that's stock up, the filter, something to defend the family. If you have extra money beyond that for investment, then you go to gold and silver-related assets. If you're very wealthy and you need some money in something that's very liquid, you can go and get Canadian and Swiss treasuries. And if these people out there don't know who to go to, we can get brokers for you. And in the stock realm, of course, people who want coins should go to Midas.
Go to theinternationalforecaster.com. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Power Hour, Bob Chapman.